Will the win in the Manchester derby be a turning point for Manchester United? Does Ruben Amorim have more charisma than Erik ten Hag? Has Pep Guardiola gone insane? And what does the idiom to have a sticky patch mean? Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Footglish podcast. My name is Zdenek Lucas. I'm your host, and the Footglish podcast is a podcast for English learners about football. And speaking about football, of course, we always need to have a guest like Martin Johnston from the Rock and Roll English, because I know he is a huge football fan. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Hello, Zdenek. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Very good after yesterday, so very glad to be here.
So we'll have to explain that. So the last time I had you on this podcast was to talk about England because you're English. However, you are also a Manchester United fan.
Yes, which hasn't been that brilliant over recent years, but we've had our moments, luckily, and yesterday was another one of them.
So you're referring, obviously, to the Manchester derby, which you won, which doesn't happen all the time. To be honest, it doesn't happen that Manchester City lose games. And now, they're not doing that well.
I just can't believe. I mean, you've seen in the years, we've seen, like, the dominant team like have a sticky patch and they slowly go down, but they have like literally fallen off a cliff. It's just, I thought they lost like 7 in 10, something like that, or more.
Basically, they have a run of 11 games where they won only one game in 11 games. Yeah,
that's crazy.
And of those 11 games, I think they won one game and they drew 3 games or something like that. So imagine they got defeated in most of these games.
I know.
It's unprecedented.
It absolutely is, because like I said, I remember, say, like the Arsenal Invincible team. The next year, they weren't invincible, but they weren't like losing every week like Manchester City are. Like, and like Manchester United and other teams that have been dominant, Chelsea. But I'd never seen a team just crash like this so much.
It's bizarre.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
It is. It's very bizarre.
That's why I need to ask you, does it really feel like a win? Like, can you even enjoy this as a Manchester United fan? Because it's like it's almost like equivalent of kicking someone. Like, imagine you're fighting a boxer in the ring and you're just boxing someone who is already lying on the floor. They're already knocked out, So
if this was, like the Manchester United of old, like under like Sir Alex Ferguson, it probably wouldn't have felt like such a win. But I think as football fans, you need to, like, it's all about moments, really. And when your team's not having a lot of them, you need to take the ones that you can get. So, and not only that, it was the manner of it. If for example, we had scored in the 60th minute and the like 70th, it wouldn't have been so dramatic. But like 2 goals in the last 2 minutes, like, unbelievable. I'm not sure if you've heard, but obviously I was watching it in England, and Gary Neville had one of his moments of like, it was just, obviously, probably if I was a Manchester City fan, I wouldn't enjoy that. I mean, he wasn't like cheering. It was just one of those moments. He had one with Torres, I remember, when he scored for Chelsea in that semi-final against Barcelona, where he's just almost like, they've described it as like having an orgasm. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So one of those moments where he kind of doesn't control himself and does something that is a bit
well, it wasn't like a cheer, because obviously he's a Manchester United fan, but it wasn't like, yes, it was more of just like, because as sort of Ahmed got the ball and sort of knocked it, it didn't look like it was going in, so he was just kind of like, and it was one of those moments of like, could this happen? Like, that is brilliant.
It sounds more like something I would say, or a sound I would make if I were to ride on a roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, it very much was like that, because he's knocked the ball over, and then it's coming like, and you think, is the defender going to get there? And it just kind of trickles in. Absolutely brilliant. There's nothing
So
like a last minute winner, and especially
absolutely,
when it's an important match. If it's a
yes.
derby match, like we're not challenging for the league. I don't think it's going to be particularly important for our league season, but a derby match is always an important match. Away to Manchester City.
Exactly, at the
It,
Etihad, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Manchester City were 1-0 up. They scored
Yeah.
through Guardiola. I think
Mhm.
it was a set piece
Yeah.
situation or something like that?
Again, because Manchester United are terrible at
There
defending
was a
set pieces.
cross, I think, from De Bruyne. It got
Yeah.
deflected,
Yeah.
and then Guardiola was where he was supposed to be. So Manchester United 1-0 up. Manchester City 1-0 up.
1-0 up, yeah.
And then actually they were not the dominant force as they normally are. They are always so good at killing the game off, like
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
the game off, right? But it didn't happen. Even Guardiola in the post-match conference, he said they asked him a question about like whether they had the match under the control. He said, "No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not the way we look when we have games under control."
Yeah, although at the same time, I think it was kind of two poor teams, to be honest. I don't think Manchester United were particularly dominant, but it all came from that dodgy back pass. I can't remember who it was by, the Manchester City right back, and then Ahmed cut it out. So it came from that really. And this is the thing about football. So, I mean, I still play on a Tuesday, and we might be 4 goals up, and then you concede one, and then you just feel that tide and you just can't stop it. And so when you score in like the 88th minute and there's still a few minutes left, like the opposition, they just get a spring in their step, and sometimes there's
I
almost nothing you can do.
I know exactly what you mean because yesterday I played a pickleball match, not a professional game or anything, just
Right.
it's a social activity where we play
Yeah.
pickleball. I don't even know if the listeners of this podcast know what a pickleball is.
I don't actually know what pickleball is.
I'm not surprised because it's kind of a new sport. It's like an alternative to tennis. You play it on a smaller court with plastic paddles,
but not what's that other
plastic
game?
ball, and
What's the other paddle? Not paddle.
paddle. No. It's
Right.
like paddle, but paddle has mantinas. It has the
Right. I've
glass
never
board,
played paddle either.
and it can
Yeah.
bounce off the wall like in
Right.
squash. But pickleball doesn't, and
Pickleball. Right.
pickleball. It reminds you a little bit of it's like a cross between tennis and table tennis, but
Oh,
it's
right.
still
Okay.
more but it's still more tennis than table
Yeah.
tennis. And we were 8-2 up in that set, yeah, and you play until 11.
Okay.
And I started sort of like joking around and doing stupid things, and suddenly
Yeah,
it was 10-10, you know, so almost
No,
lost the game.
it's just something, isn't it? Like when someone's on that back and you can feel it coming and you start to panic. If you're in the lead, you
Exactly.
start to panic and they're getting more and more confident. And then so when that happens, like a goal, someone like equalizes in the 88th minute, there's always that like
moment, yeah.
yeah. And then it's like if you can see that out or not, and they weren't able to.
That was a penalty, right? You equalized
Oh,
through a penalty. It was a
that was
stonewall
Stonewall.
penalty. Stonewall, yeah.
That was. I actually thought we should have had another penalty in the match. It was like a foul, I thought, on Højlund. But the one they gave, the one which I thought was kind of, I suppose, 50-50, that you've seen them given kind of thing. But the one on Ahmed, that was absolutely, again, in commentary, Gary Neville, as soon as it happened, just went penalty because it's so blatant that
it was obvious.
and again because the back pass and the defender was running back, I think again panic had set in, and so he made like a stupid challenge. But I thought Ahmed was clever the way he sort of shielded the ball. It's like if you're coming this way, you've got to go through me, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, he's been a revelation like in recent weeks. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And the form of Manchester City has been revelation too. And you're speaking about psychology and mental state, mental strength, strong will, and all that. It's so important. And it's, I think, two ways this happened in this game. It's like the short term mental state in that particular game. Like as you said, they started panicking and whatnot, and then of course that sort of bad run of form kind of mental state kicked in as well. So it's like a double.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
you know.
And when you're in that run of form, like again from my playing career, or when I was maybe like a child and I was playing in a team, if you were on a bad run, and like you were near a victory. It's like we need to hold on. And again, like you said, like panic sets in there as well. Like we need this so much, and then, but yeah, when things aren't going for you, things aren't going for you.
When it rains, it pours, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's exactly what happened, because then 2 minutes later, you scored the winner.
Oh, what a goal!
Which was
well.
quite an another sort of
Yeah.
unbelievable moment. So who was the goal scorer?
So yeah, Ahmed
Ahmed,
Jallo, yeah. And the only disappointing thing was I had Martinez in my dream team, but I had him on the bench and he got the assist. That was, but the ball through. I mean, just the run as well. This is. I mean, it sounds so stupid, but for example, Rashford wasn't even in the squad, same as Garnacho yesterday.
Right. Do you know why? Did Amorim say why in the end?
He didn't obviously specifically say it, but he basically said they haven't been training well enough. He said, look, in our club at the moment, people are losing jobs because of like the new ownership, people losing their jobs. So he said we need to set the standards. So if you're not coming into training like prepared and ready,
he punished them.
Well, he said it wasn't a disciplinary thing. He just basically said they weren't good enough in training.
That sounds a bit iffy, because they are obviously huge superstars on large salaries. I think it's some sort of punishment, or maybe setting an example or something.
Well, I mean, it could, if it. I mean, it could obviously be, but I almost hope it is just the fact it wasn't training well enough, because it's like, look, you need to be at it all the time. And so in the goal, if you watch it, so Ahmed was kind of like out sort of on the right, and just the ball. So Martinez had the ball in the left back area, and just he made that run. And I just thought, like, if that was Rashford, he would have just been standing there. But like but like Jallo just decided, right, I'm going, and then obviously he picked him out. And it was great to see. And hopefully, like Amorim said, he said basically like next week, it's a like clean slate for like Rashford and Garnacho. So hopefully it will give them the kick up the backside that they need. And hopefully it does send a message to everyone of like, look, you need to be giving everything all the time, because if you're not, it's not even you on the bench, which I thought it was. I'm sort of really pleased he did that. Not even on the bench, like you're out the squad. Like if you want to play, you have to be like at it all the time. And so that was great to see. But obviously, because we won the match, I'm sure if we had lost the match, there'd have been a big story. And it's all decisions work well when you win. And especially when one of the players like got a goal and won the penalty. But it couldn't really have finished better yesterday. But my concern is that, I think I said to you this in the message, well, we're playing Tottenham on Thursday in the Carabao Cup, and then we've got Bournemouth at home next week. And I could easily see us losing both of those matches. This has just been Manchester United, certainly since, even say like Solskjaer, Ten Hag, their reigns, it would be like things would be really bad. Then you would get a great result. And for example, Solskjaer won, I think, I saw recently he played Guardiola, I think 7 or like 9 times, 4 wins for Solskjaer, 4 for Guardiola, and 1 draw or something like that. So he did get lots of results against Manchester City. And this is just Manchester United. Just have these moments where you think things are going so badly, and then there's a great result. For example, the FA Cup final. Like, I mean, it was like end of the season was terrible. You go in the FA Cup final, like, thinking
that's why Erik ten Hag stayed, I think, because otherwise he would have been sacked.
Yeah.
So
I think Ten Hag had lots of these moments actually of like it was getting so bad you think he's going to get sacked now, but then it would be like we beat Liverpool in the FA Cup in the last minute, for example. It's just like something, you get like a really good result, and then he would stay in the job a bit longer.
He would save his job.
Yeah.
So now with this new manager, I thought at first you had a bit of a manager's bounce, right? Manager bounce, and then it all went pear-shaped again, because you lost to Arsenal, then Nottingham Forest.
Exactly.
But then I have to also mention a game against a team from my country, Victoria Plzeň, where I was hoping, this happened by the way last Thursday, and I was hoping, it was a Europa League game, I was hoping that your team would before the game visit the brewery. Victoria, like Plzeň is famous for its beer, right?
Right.
But turned out that they visited the brewery after the game. So
Oh, really?
so you won. So
know
you
that.
won. You won 2-1. But
Right.
you also had to turn it around. But the consolation for me is that you beat Manchester City 2-1. Plzeň lost 2-1 as well against you. So we are
Yeah.
Victoria Plzeň are as good as Manchester City. So it's not too bad after all.
Absolutely. But yeah, this, as I said, is Manchester United, and it has been for a few years now. Of like, it's going really badly. Like, so we're playing, obviously, like a Czech team who Manchester United would be expected to win comfortably, and then like scrape out a result. And then you think, God, things are so bad. And then bang, beat Manchester City, and everyone's like, oh wow, like we're back. And you think, no, let's calm down. It's the same as the new manager, to be honest. So some of my friends said, like, what do you think of him? And I said, like, he seems nice, like seems good, seems to know what he's talking about. Some good signs of like, especially this with the Rashford thing. But it was the same as like Ten Hag. Like, I must admit, I didn't know much about Ten Hag before, or Amorim, and it's like, I've heard this so many times in the last 10 years of like, things are going to change now. Mourinho's here, or things are going to change now. Van Gaal's here, but it's just like you just follow the same cycle. So obviously, you hope. One thing that I do like about Amorim, which I think Ten Hag lacks, is he's got charisma.
Right.
And
but Martin, to be honest, like compared to Ten Hag, even you and I have more charisma than him. So
yeah, that is true. And well, I'm not saying like you 100% need to have charisma, but I don't know. I think it helps when you're in such a big job like Manchester United. I think I think it helps, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
But who we thought also had charisma is, of course, Pep Guardiola. And this is the last question I have to ask you. I don't know whether you saw that post-match conference, but if you haven't seen it,
I saw just the headline of like, he said, "I'm not good enough" or something.
Go and watch
the headline.
It's such an unbelievable press conference. And with him, the thing is, like, whenever he talks, I don't know whether he's being genuine and he's just so honest, or he is being ironic or sarcastic, because he speaks in that kind of voice that you kind of don't know like what he means actually. And he did sort of self-flagellantly point out several times, I think, that he wasn't good enough, that he isn't good enough right now. And it seemed like such a bombshell. It was hard to take in from someone like that, because you have this legend sitting in front of you and you're watching him on screen, broken, and you don't know whether this is some sort of alternative universe or what the hell is going on there, like science fiction or something.
Because really, it's the first time I think in his managerial career that things haven't been going well for him. Really, like, so he obviously started at Barca and they won the treble in the first season he was there, and then the season he left, they finished second. And that was obviously like a disaster. Then he left. They went to Bayern Munich, won everything. Even at Manchester City, so his first year, they didn't win the league. And then I think 2020, when Liverpool won it, they're the only seasons. But, well, except his first season, which people could understand. But in that season where Liverpool won the league, like, Manchester City didn't reach the levels that they had, but they weren't like falling off a cliff thing. They just had, like they weren't great that season. So like, this is the first time it's gone like so badly for him. And it's it's a test of his, like, how good of a manager is he? Like, can he get out of this now? Because most managers go through this at some point in their career, and
most managers get sacked. Like, he's not sackable, so it's never going to happen.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And the irony is that everyone was hoping that the only way Manchester City don't win the title is if they, if they get punished by the FA for those 130 breaches of financial fair play rules or something. But instead, we are getting this. Like, I don't know what to think about it.
The surprise is as well, everyone expected Arsenal to be there. And it looks like Liverpool and Chelsea are the teams.
Chelsea look better,
Arsenal had a chance to like reduce the gap at the weekend and didn't again. And they seem to be having lots of problems scoring goals at the moment. So I almost feel sorry for Arsenal in some way because, if this has happened in any of the previous 2 seasons, then I think Arsenal would have comfortably won the league because there weren't really any other challenges. But
at least we know there is a second meaning to that famous London Underground phrase, mind the gap, mind the gap. We know there's a second meaning to that, and that's the one, unfortunately. Anyway, Martin, it's been fantastic, always fantastic to talk to you, to steal a phrase from your podcast, which is called the Rock and Roll English, for anyone who wants to check it out. A great podcast, by the way. Thank you very much for talking to me about your team, Manchester United.
No problem, anytime. Always happy to talk about football. There's never a bad time for me to talk about football.
Absolutely. Take care, man. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Language Corner. As always, in this part of the show, I'm going to explain some language, the English language, and that's because I'm an English teacher. That's right, that is my job. I know it may not be obvious at first when you start listening to this podcast, but actually, I'm an English teacher, and I set out to do this podcast with the idea of connecting my favorite interest, which is football, and of course also make use of my experience as an English teacher. So hopefully you guys like this podcast. If you do, why don't you leave a review on iTunes, or leave a comment down below the video if you are watching this on YouTube. Anyway, I would like to explain just 2 idioms today, just to keep it short and sweet. And this is from a short sentence that Martin said. He said, "I just can't believe you have seen over the years, we have seen that dominant teams have a sticky patch and they slowly go down, but they've literally fallen off a cliff." So Martin was talking about Manchester City and their form, and he used 2 idioms. So to have a sticky patch, and then he said they have fallen off a cliff. So let's explain this. So if you have a sticky patch, it means that you are experiencing a lot of problems in a period of your life. Yes. So you can go through a bad, difficult, rough, or sticky patch. All these words, bad, difficult, rough, sticky, collocate with the word patch, and they are all used as an idiom, right? As part of this idiom. So you could be going through a sticky patch in your relationship. Maybe things are not going well at work. So you could be going through a rough patch there. Yeah, so it's a nice little idiom to learn. Then Martin said that they have literally fallen off a cliff. So again, he was talking about Manchester City. Okay, so if you fall off a cliff, you know what a cliff is, right? It's that high area of rock with a very steep side. Often it's on a coast, right? So wherever you have an ocean, and then there's a high area of rock, and people often like to look down, but it's very dangerous, right? And of course, if you fall off a cliff, you usually die if it's very deep, right? So you can die. So nobody wants to do that, right? Nobody wants to fall off a cliff unless, I guess, somebody decides to take their own life. But in this case, it's also used as an idiomatic expression, which means to suddenly and quickly become less successful, right? So if you fall off a cliff, you are doing all right, or you are successful, and suddenly you become less successful. It almost comes out of nowhere, out of the blue, and so that kind of was like that, because I even remember Manchester City thrashing Sparta Prague 6-0 or something like that, and then out of nowhere, they had 11 games in which they only won 1 game. And they have 7 defeats there. It's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. But I think this episode of the Footglish podcast was believable. Hopefully, it's the standards that we keep here on the Footglish podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's always a pleasure to have Martin on, of course. And thank you very much for listening. If you do like these podcasts, why don't you subscribe on iTunes, or is it called Apple Podcasts these days? Sorry. Or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Teacher Zdenek YouTube channel, because most of these podcasts are also available as a video on YouTube on my channel, which is called the Teacher Zdenek YouTube channel. Actually, it's called just Teacher Zdenek. Okay, thank you very much, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.